In a quiet little town surrounded by green hills and narrow winding roads, there lived a young woman named Maya. She wasn't someone people noticed much, just another face in the crowd, working hard to make ends meet. Her life was simple but tough. Every morning she woke up before sunrise, got dressed in her worn-out clothes, and walked to the small cafe where she worked as a waitress. The cafe, called Cup of Joy, was a cozy place with chipped mugs, mismatched chairs, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough for Maya to keep a roof over her head and food on the table. Maya's days were predictable. She served customers who barely looked at her, cleaned tables that seemed to get dirty again within minutes, and smiled politely even when she was exhausted. But deep inside, Maya dreamed of something more, a life where she didn't have to count every penny or worry about how she'd pay next month's rent. She often imagined herself traveling to faraway places, wearing beautiful dresses, and being treated with respect instead of invisibility. Yet, reality always pulled her back. Life hadn't been kind to her, and she had learned to accept it. One gloomy afternoon, raindrops pattered against the cafe windows, creating streaks of water that blurred the view outside. The cafe was nearly empty except for a few customers huddled in corners, sipping their drinks while avoiding the storm. Maya moved around the room, clearing plates and refilling cups, lost in her thoughts. As she bent down to pick up a napkin, someone had dropped near one of the tables. Something caught her eye, a glint of red shining faintly under the chair. Curious, Maya reached out and picked it up. It was a ring, unlike anything she had ever seen. A large ruby stone sat proudly in the center, its deep crimson color glowing like fire even in the dim light of the cafe. The gold band was intricately designed, delicate yet strong, hinting at its value. Maya turned it over in her hands, marveling at its beauty. It didn't look like something someone would casually lose. It seemed too precious, too important. For a moment, Maya wondered if this could be her ticket out of poverty. Maybe she could sell it and use the money to start a new life. But guilt quickly washed over her. No matter how desperate she was, keeping something that didn't belong to her felt wrong. Besides, what if the owner came looking for it? What if it held sentimental value? Shaking her head, Maya decided to do the right thing. She took the ring to the cafe owner, Mrs. Patel, an elderly woman with silver hair and a warm smile. "Mrs. Patel," Maya said, holding out the ring. "I found this under one of the chairs. Do you think anyone reported losing it?" Mrs. Patel adjusted her glasses and examined the ring closely. Her eyes widened slightly as she realized just how valuable it looked. No one has mentioned losing a ring today," she replied thoughtfully. "Leave it with me for now. If someone comes asking, we'll return it." Days passed and no one claimed the ring. Customers came and went, chatting about their lives, complaining about the weather, or simply enjoying their coffee in silence. Still, no one seemed to miss the dazzling piece of jewelry. After a week, Mrs. Patel handed the ring back to Maya. "It's yours now," she said kindly. "No one's come forward, so maybe it's meant to be." Maya hesitated. Keeping such a valuable item felt strange, almost surreal. She placed the ring in a small box and tucked it away in her drawer, unsure of what to do with it. For weeks she tried to forget about it, focusing instead on her daily routine. But the ring lingered in her mind, nagging at her like a secret, waiting to be uncovered. Then one evening, as Maya tidied up her tiny apartment, she absent-mindedly slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as though it had been made just for her. She stared at it for a long time, admiring how the ruby sparkled in the soft glow of her bedside lamp. Just as she was about to take it off, her phone buzzed loudly on the table. Startled, she glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number. Her heart raced as she debated whether to answer. Unknown calls usually meant telemarketers or scams, but something urged her to pick up. Taking a deep breath, she pressed the green button and held the phone to her ear. "Hello?" she said cautiously. On the other end of the line was a man's voice, smooth and confident with a hint of urgency. "Is this Maya?" he asked. Yes, who's calling? She replied, her curiosity piqued. My name is Alexander Hartwell, the man said. His tone shifted to something warmer, almost relieved. I believe you recently found a ruby ring, a family heirloom. I've been searching for it everywhere. Maya froze, her fingers tightening around the phone. How did he know? Had someone told him? Or was this some sort of trick? How do you know about the ring? She asked suspiciously. Alexander chuckled softly. Because it belongs to my family, he explained. The ring was my mother's, and it holds great significance to us. I traced its last known location to the cafe where you work. Please, can we meet? I'd like to discuss this further. Maya's mind spun with questions. Who was this man? Why was the ring so important? And why did he sound so certain that she had it? Despite her doubts, she agreed to meet him the following day at his office downtown. After hanging up, she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and anxiety. Something told her that this meeting would change her life forever, but whether for better or worse, she couldn't say. That night, Maya barely slept. She kept replaying the conversation in her head, wondering what awaited her. Was this all some elaborate hoax? Or was the universe finally giving her a chance to break free from her struggles? One thing was clear. Whatever happened next, the ruby ring had set wheels in motion that she couldn't stop even if she wanted to. The next morning, Maya woke up with a knot in her stomach. She hadn't slept well, tossing and turning as her mind raced with questions about the mysterious man named Alexander Hartwell. Who was he? Why did his voice sound so commanding yet gentle at the same time? And most importantly, what connection did he have to the ruby ring that had fallen into her hands so unexpectedly? Despite her nerves, Maya knew she couldn't back out now. Something deep inside told her this meeting might hold answers, and perhaps opportunities she could never have imagined. After getting ready, Maya carefully slipped the ruby ring into her pocket, its weight both comforting and unsettling. She took a bus downtown, clutching the strap of her bag tightly as the cityscape unfolded around her. The streets were bustling with people rushing to work, cars honking impatiently, and skyscrapers towering above like giants made of glass and steel. Maya had always felt small in places like this, but today she felt even smaller. She wasn't dressed for luxury or wealth. Her clothes were simple, practical, and far from glamorous. Yet here she was, heading toward an office that belonged to someone who sounded like he lived in an entirely different world. When Maya arrived at the address Alexander had given her, she found herself standing in front of a sleek, modern building with a polished marble entrance. A security guard greeted her politely and directed her to the top floor. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Maya stared at her reflection in the mirrored walls. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and her face bore no makeup except for a swipe of lip balm. She looked ordinary, almost invisible compared to the polished professionals she'd seen entering the building earlier. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was she making a mistake by coming here? What if Alexander turned out to be someone untrustworthy? When the elevator dinged open on the top floor, Maya stepped into a reception area that took her breath away. The space was vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. Plush couches sat beside minimalist coffee tables, and abstract art adorned the walls. Everything screamed money and power. Behind a curved desk sat a young woman in a tailored suit typing away on a computer. She looked up when Maya approached. "May I help you?" the receptionist asked with a polite smile. "I'm here to see Mr. Alexander Hartwell," Maya replied, her voice steadier than she expected. The receptionist nodded and picked up the phone. After a brief conversation, she gestured toward a corridor. "Mr. Hartwell is waiting for you in his office. Please follow me." As they walked down the hallway, Maya noticed framed photographs lining the walls. In each picture, Alexander stood beside famous politicians, celebrities, and business tycoons. He looked confident and charismatic, with piercing blue eyes and a sharp jawline. Maya felt a pang of intimidation. This man clearly moved in circles she couldn't even dream of. Finally, they reached a pair of double doors, which the receptionist opened before stepping aside. Inside, the room was even more impressive. The centerpiece was a massive oak desk, surrounded by shelves filled with books and awards. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the space in natural light, highlighting the rich textures of leather chairs and Persian rugs. And there, standing near the window with his back to her, was Alexander Hartwell himself. He turned as Maya entered, and for a moment their eyes locked. His gaze was intense, studying her as though trying to read her thoughts. Then, his expression softened into a warm smile. "You must be Maya," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." Maya hesitated for a second before shaking his hand. His grip was firm but not overpowering, and his presence exuded authority without being intimidating. "Yes, I'm Maya," she replied, still unsure how to act. "Please have a seat," Alexander said, gesturing to one of the chairs opposite his desk. He waited until she was seated before taking his own chair. Leaning forward slightly, he clasped his hands together and spoke. "I can't tell you how relieved I am that you found my mother's ring. It means more to me than words can express." Maya pulled the ring from her pocket and placed it on the desk between them. "Is this really yours?" she asked cautiously. "How do I know it's not some kind of scam?" Alexander chuckled softly, seemingly unfazed by her skepticism. "Fair question," he admitted. "Let me explain. The ring has been in my family for generations. My mother wore it every day until she passed away last year. Recently it went missing during a charity event held at a cafe, not unlike the one where you work. When I traced its last known location, I discovered your name through the cafe owner." His explanation seemed plausible, but Maya wasn't convinced just yet. "Why is it so important to you?" she pressed. "It's just a ring, isn't it?" Alexander's expression grew serious. "To most people, it might seem like just a ring," he said quietly. "But to me, it represents my mother's legacy and something else I'll explain later. Suffice it to say, it's irreplaceable." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Maya studied him closely, searching for any sign of deception, but all she saw was sincerity. Finally, she broke the silence. "What happens now?" she asked. Alexander leaned back in his chair, his blue eyes thoughtful. "Now, we talk about why fate brought us together," he said cryptically. "There's something you need to know, Maya. Something that will change everything." Her heart skipped a beat. "Change everything? What are you talking about?" Instead of answering directly, Alexander stood up and walked to a nearby shelf. He retrieved a small wooden box and brought it back to the desk. Opening it, he revealed several old photographs. One showed a young couple smiling happily, holding hands in front of a quaint little house. Another featured a toddler sitting on a man's lap, giggling as he tickled her. Maya recognized the man instantly. It was Alexander's father, but also her own. "This is our father," Alexander said gently, pointing to the man in the pictures. "Your father, too." Maya's world tilted. She stared at the photos, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "That's impossible. My father left us years ago. He abandoned my mom and me." "He didn't abandon you," Alexander corrected, his voice tinged with sadness. "He left because he fell in love with my mother. They had me shortly after. Your mother never told you the truth because she wanted to protect you from the pain of knowing he chose another family." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as pieces of her past began falling into place. Memories of her childhood surfaced. The lonely nights, her mother's quiet sobs, the unanswered questions about why her father disappeared. All this time she had believed he simply didn't care. Now she realized the truth was far more complicated and heartbreaking. "I don't understand," Maya murmured, wiping her tears. "Why are you telling me this now? Why bring it up after all these years?" "Because I owe you an apology," Alexander said earnestly. "For years I lived in privilege while you struggled. I didn't know about you until recently, when I discovered documents among my mother's belongings. Learning about you changed everything for me. You're my sister, Maya. Half-sister, yes, but still family. And I want to make things right. Maya sat in stunned silence, overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't fully comprehend. Anger, confusion, betrayal, and even a flicker of hope swirled within her. Could she trust this man who claimed to be her brother? Did she even want to? Seeing her hesitation, Alexander continued, "I know this is a lot to take in, but please give me a chance to prove myself, to show you that I genuinely care. You deserve better than the life you've been living. Let me help you." Despite her doubts, Maya couldn't deny the sincerity in his voice. For the first time in years, someone was offering her a lifeline, a chance to escape the cycle of poverty and hardship. But accepting it meant opening herself up to vulnerability, to risks she wasn't sure she was ready for. As they talked further, Maya began to see glimpses of kindness beneath Alexander's polished exterior. He shared stories about their father, painting a picture of a man who had loved deeply but struggled to balance two families. He spoke of his mother with affection, describing her as a strong and compassionate woman who would have welcomed Maya with open arms. By the end of their conversation, Maya felt a spark of cautious optimism. Whether or not she trusted Alexander completely, one thing was certain: the ruby ring had unlocked secrets that would forever alter the course of her life. Maya left Alexander's office that day with her head spinning and her heart heavy. The revelation about their shared father had shaken her to the core, leaving her unsure of what to think or feel. As she walked back to the bus stop, the city around her seemed louder and more chaotic than before. Cars honked impatiently, people hurried past without a glance, and the skyscrapers loomed over her like giants casting long shadows. For the first time in her life, Maya felt utterly out of place, not just physically but emotionally. When she finally reached her tiny apartment, she collapsed onto the couch, staring at the ceiling as tears streamed down her face. Her thoughts were a tangled mess. How could her mother have kept such a secret from her? Why hadn't anyone told her the truth about her father? And why now, after all these years, was Alexander stepping into her life claiming to be her brother? It felt surreal, almost like a dream. Or maybe a nightmare. For hours, Maya sat in silence, replaying every word Alexander had said. He had sounded sincere, his words filled with regret and longing for connection. But trust didn't come easily to Maya. Life had taught her to expect disappointment, betrayal, and pain. Could she really believe that this billionaire, who lived in a world so far removed from hers, genuinely cared about her? The next morning, Maya woke up feeling conflicted. Part of her wanted to run away from everything, to ignore Alexander, and pretend none of this had happened. But another part of her couldn't shake the curiosity burning inside. What if he was telling the truth? What if this was her chance to uncover the missing pieces of her past and build a future she had only dreamed of? Determined to find answers, Maya decided to visit her mother. Though they rarely spoke these days due to unresolved tensions, Maya knew her mother held the key to understanding the truth. She took a bus to her childhood home, a small weathered house on the outskirts of town. The garden was overgrown with weeds, and the paint on the walls was peeling, but it still held memories of happier times. Her mother, Sarita, was surprised to see her. "Maya," she said, opening the door cautiously. "What brings you here?" "I need to talk," Maya replied, her voice firm despite the storm of emotions brewing inside her. Sarita led her to the living room, where they sat across from each other. The air between them was tense, thick with unspoken words and years of distance. Maya took a deep breath and began. "Mom, I found something recently, a ruby ring. And through that ring I met someone who says we're related." Sarita's expression changed instantly. Her eyes widened, and her hands trembled slightly. "Who did you meet?" she asked, though Maya could tell she already knew the answer. "His name is Alexander Hartwell," Maya said, watching her mother closely. "He says our father left us because he fell in love with his mother. Is that true?" Sarita looked away, guilt etched on her face. After a long pause, she sighed deeply and nodded. "Yes, it's true," she admitted softly. "Your father loved me once, but then he met someone else, someone wealthier, more privileged. When he chose her, I was devastated. I didn't want you to grow up knowing that your father abandoned us for another family, so I kept it from you. I thought it would protect you." Maya felt a mix of anger and sadness. "Protect me? Do you know how hard it was growing up without a father? Not knowing why he left, thinking he didn't care about me?" "I'm sorry," Sarita whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know how to tell you." They sat in silence for a while, both lost in their thoughts. Finally, Maya spoke again. "Alexander wants to help me. He says he wants to make things right. Do you think I should trust him?" Sarita hesitated. "I don't know much about him," she admitted. "But if he truly cares about reconnecting with you, maybe it's worth giving him a chance. Just be careful, Maya. People aren't always what they seem." With her mother's advice lingering in her mind, Maya returned to her apartment. Over the next few days, she debated whether to reach out to Alexander. On one hand, she yearned for the stability and opportunities he promised. On the other hand, fear held her back. What if he turned out to be using her for some ulterior motive? What if this was all too good to be true? Eventually, Maya decided to take a leap of faith. She called Alexander and agreed to meet him again. This time, they met at a quiet cafe near her neighborhood, a neutral ground where neither of them felt out of place. Alexander greeted her warmly, his smile genuine and reassuring. "I'm glad you called," he said as they sat down. "I've been thinking about you a lot." "So have I," Maya admitted. "But I need to know something. Why are you doing this? Why go through all this trouble to reconnect with me after so many years?" Alexander leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Because I owe you," he said simply. "You grew up without the privileges I had, and that's not fair. Our father made choices that affected both of us, and I want to make sure you're taken care of. You're my sister, Maya. Family matters." His words touched her, but Maya wasn't ready to let her guard down completely. "It's not just about money," she said firmly. "If we're going to do this, if we're going to try to be family, I need honesty. No secrets, no lies." "You have my word," Alexander replied. "Whatever you need, whatever questions you have, I'll answer them honestly." Over the following weeks, Maya began spending more time with Alexander. He introduced her to his luxurious lifestyle, taking her shopping for clothes she'd never imagined wearing, treating her to meals at high-end restaurants, and inviting her to exclusive events. At first, Maya felt uncomfortable, like an imposter in a world that wasn't hers. People stared at her, whispering behind her back, wondering who she was and how she fit into Alexander's life. Some treated her kindly. Others looked at her with thinly veiled disdain, assuming she was trying to leech off his wealth. Despite the challenges, Maya slowly started adapting. Alexander encouraged her to pursue her passions, offering to fund her education and support her dreams. When Maya mentioned her desire to help struggling single mothers like her own, Alexander suggested starting a nonprofit organization together. They worked side by side, brainstorming ideas and laying the foundation for a project that would provide resources, mentorship, and financial assistance to women in need. Through these efforts, Maya discovered a new sense of purpose. For the first time, she felt like she was making a real difference in the world. Yet not everyone approved of her transformation. Some of Alexander's business associates viewed her as a threat, accusing her of manipulating him for personal gain. Rumors spread like wildfire, painting her as an opportunistic gold digger. Even some of her old friends from the cafe distanced themselves, unable to relate to the new Maya. One particularly difficult day, Maya received an anonymous email filled with hateful messages questioning her motives and integrity. Hurt and frustrated, she considered walking away from everything. But Alexander reminded her of why they had started this journey together. "Don't let them break you," he said firmly. "You're stronger than they think. Keep fighting for what matters." Inspired by his words, Maya refused to give in to negativity. Instead, she channeled her energy into her work, determined to prove her critics wrong. Slowly but surely, she gained the respect and admiration of those who mattered most. the women she helped, the volunteers who joined her cause, and even some of Alexander's allies who initially doubted her intentions. As months passed, Maya's confidence grew. She no longer felt like the poor girl working tirelessly at a cafe, invisible to the world. She had transformed into someone who commanded attention, not because of her last name or newfound wealth, but because of her determination, resilience, and compassion. Through it all, her bond with Alexander strengthened. They weren't just siblings bound by blood. They were partners united by a shared mission to create meaningful change. Looking back, Maya realized that the ruby ring had been more than just a piece of jewelry. It had been a catalyst, a symbol of hope, redemption, and second chances. It had connected her to a family she never knew existed and opened doors she never imagined possible. But the true treasure wasn't the ring itself. It was the journey it sparked, leading Maya to discover her strength, her purpose, and her place in the world. As the months rolled by, Maya's life continued to transform in ways she could never have predicted. With Alexander's support and guidance, she threw herself into building the nonprofit organization they had envisioned together. The project, which they named New Beginnings, aimed to empower struggling single mothers by providing them with education, job training, affordable childcare, and financial assistance. It was a cause close to Maya's heart, inspired by her own mother's struggles and sacrifices. Maya worked tirelessly, often putting in long hours alongside her team of volunteers. She visited community centers, spoke to women facing similar hardships, and listened to their stories with empathy and understanding. Her authenticity resonated deeply with those she met, earning her trust and admiration. Slowly but surely, New Beginnings began gaining traction, attracting donations from philanthropists and attention from local media outlets. For the first time in her life, Maya felt like she was making a tangible difference, not just for herself, but for others who needed help finding their footing. Despite her growing success, Maya remained grounded. She refused to let wealth or privilege change who she was at her core. Every weekend she returned to the cafe where she used to work, helping out during busy shifts and mentoring young staff members. To her, it was important to stay connected to her roots, to remind herself of how far she had come and to inspire others to dream bigger. But not everyone celebrated her achievements. As New Beginnings gained visibility, Maya became a target of jealousy and resentment. Some of Alexander's business associates openly criticized her efforts, accusing her of meddling in areas she didn't understand. Others spread rumors that she was using Alexander's money and influence to boost her ego. Even within the nonprofit sector, some skeptics questioned whether her intentions were genuine or if she was simply trying to polish her image. The criticism stung, especially when it came from people she respected. One evening, after a particularly grueling day filled with back-to-back meetings and hostile comments online, Maya broke down in tears. Sitting alone in her apartment, she wondered if all the effort was worth it. Was she fighting an uphill battle that would never end? Could she really make a lasting impact, or was she destined to be dismissed as someone riding on her brother's coattails? Alexander noticed her distress during one of their regular check-ins. They were sitting in his penthouse office, discussing upcoming fundraising events for New Beginnings. Maya tried to mask her emotions, but Alexander saw through her facade immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked gently, leaning forward in his chair. Maya hesitated before answering. "I'm just tired," she admitted. "Tired of proving myself to people who already think the worst of me. No matter what I do, there will always be someone ready to tear me down." Alexander sighed, his expression softening. "I know. It's hard," he said. "People can be cruel, especially when they see someone rising above circumstances they assume should define them. But don't let their negativity dictate your path. You're doing incredible work, Maya. Focus on the lives you're changing, not the opinions of those who refuse to see the truth." His words struck a chord. Maya realized that she couldn't please everyone, nor should she try. What mattered most was staying true to her values and continuing to fight for what she believed in. With renewed determination, she vowed to push forward no matter how tough the journey became. A turning point came when New Beginnings hosted its first major charity gala. Held at a grand ballroom in the city, the event brought together influential figures from various industries: business leaders, politicians, artists, and activists, all united by a shared goal of supporting single mothers. Maya played a central role in organizing the gala, overseeing every detail from decorations to speeches. Though she was nervous about stepping into the spotlight, she knew this was an opportunity to showcase the impact of her work. On the night of the gala, Maya stood backstage, adjusting the elegant gown Alexander had gifted her for the occasion. Her reflection in the mirror looked unfamiliar yet empowering. Gone was the shy waitress from the cafe. In her place was a confident woman ready to take on the world. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the stage as the host announced her name. The room fell silent as Maya approached the microphone. Hundreds of eyes watched her intently, waiting to hear what she had to say. For a moment, she felt overwhelmed by the weight of the moment. Then she remembered why she was there. Not for herself, but for the countless women counting on her to be their voice. "Good evening," she began, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. "Thank you all for being here tonight. Your presence means more than words can express. When I started this journey, I never imagined I'd stand before such an incredible group of people, sharing a vision born out of my own struggles." She paused, scanning the room. "Growing up, I learned early on what it means to fight for survival. My mother worked multiple jobs to keep us afloat, sacrificing so much just to give me a chance at a better future. She taught me resilience, strength, and the importance of lifting others as we climb. That's why New Beginnings exists, to provide hope and resources to women who deserve nothing less." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "Being part of this movement has shown me that no one succeeds alone. We rise together, supporting each other through challenges and celebrating victories big and small. Tonight, I ask you to join us in creating a world where no mother has to choose between feeding her child and pursuing her dreams. Together, we can rewrite the narrative and build brighter futures for generations to come." When Maya finished speaking, the room erupted into applause. People rose to their feet, moved by her honesty and passion. Tears welled up in her eyes as she took a bow, feeling a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. In that moment, she realized that her story, the poor girl who found a ruby ring and discovered a family she never knew existed, wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to every person who dared to believe in second chances. After the gala, New Beginnings received an outpouring of support. Donations poured in, partnerships were formed, and enrollment in their programs skyrocketed. Maya's speech went viral on social media, inspiring thousands of viewers around the world. Critics who had once doubted her began to acknowledge her contributions, recognizing that her intentions were genuine. Through it all, Maya stayed humble, focusing on the mission rather than personal accolades. She worked closely with Alexander, whose unwavering support gave her the confidence to keep pushing boundaries. Their bond as siblings grew stronger, built on mutual respect and shared goals. Together, they proved that family wasn't just about blood. It was about standing by each other through thick and thin. Life wasn't without its challenges, of course. There were still moments of doubt, setbacks, and obstacles to overcome. But Maya faced them head-on, armed with the lessons she had learned along the way. She understood now that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars or possessions. It was measured in the connections we forge, the lives we touch, and the legacy we leave behind. As she reflected on her journey, Maya couldn't help but smile. From the quiet cafe where she once served coffee to the glittering ballrooms where she now inspired crowds, her transformation had been nothing short of extraordinary. Yet at the heart of it all was the simple truth that had guided her from the start. No matter where you come from, you have the power to shape your destiny. And sometimes all it takes is a spark, a ruby ring perhaps, to ignite the fire within. As the months turned into a year, Maya's life settled into a rhythm she had never imagined possible. Her days were no longer consumed by the monotony of scraping by or worrying about how to make ends meet. Instead, they were filled with purpose and meaning. planning projects for new beginnings, meeting inspiring individuals, and watching lives transform because of her efforts. Yet despite her achievements, Maya remained deeply connected to her roots. She still visited the cafe where she used to work, chatting with former co-workers and helping train new staff members. To her, it was a reminder of where she came from, and proof that even the smallest beginnings could lead to extraordinary outcomes. One crisp autumn morning, Maya sat at her favorite corner table in the cafe, sipping a cup of coffee while reviewing documents for an upcoming fundraising campaign. The cafe buzzed with activity around her, familiar sounds of laughter, clinking cups, and soft music filling the air. As she flipped through the pages, Mrs. Patel, the cafe owner, approached her with a warm smile. "You've changed so much, Maya," Mrs. Patel said, placing a plate of freshly baked cookies on the table. "But you're still the same girl I knew years ago. You haven't forgotten who you are." Maya looked up, touched by the compliment. "I couldn't forget if I tried," she replied with a grin. "This place reminds me of everything I've been through, the struggles, the lessons, the little victories. It keeps me grounded." Mrs. Patel nodded approvingly. "That's what makes you special, dear. You carry your past with grace, but you don't let it hold you back. Not many people can do that." The conversation lingered in Maya's mind long after Mrs. Patel returned to the counter. It made her reflect on how far she'd come, not just materially, but emotionally and mentally. A year ago, she had been overwhelmed by self-doubt, unsure if she deserved the opportunities fate had handed her. Now, she walked into rooms with confidence, knowing that her worth wasn't defined by her circumstances but by her actions. Still, Maya faced challenges. While new beginnings continued to thrive, criticism from certain circles persisted. Some skeptics accused her of using her newfound status as Alexander's sister to gain influence, ignoring the countless hours she dedicated to the cause. Others dismissed her success as fleeting, predicting that she would eventually burn out or lose interest. At times, these voices weighed heavily on her, planting seeds of doubt in her mind. But Maya learned to rise above them, focusing instead on the positive impact she was creating. Her relationship with Alexander also evolved over time. Initially, their bond had been tentative, built on shared DNA and mutual curiosity. But as they worked together on various initiatives, they grew closer, becoming not just siblings, but true partners. Alexander admired Maya's resilience and determination, qualities he felt he lacked in his own life. In turn, Maya appreciated his wisdom and generosity, recognizing that his wealth wasn't just financial. It extended to his willingness to share knowledge, resources, and connections. Their collaboration extended beyond new beginnings. Together, they launched a scholarship program for underprivileged students, providing tuition assistance and mentorship opportunities. They also invested in sustainable businesses led by women entrepreneurs, amplifying voices that often went unheard. Through these ventures, Maya discovered a side of Alexander she hadn't expected, a man driven not just by profit, but by a genuine desire to create lasting change. Despite their successes, there were moments of tension between them. One such moment occurred during a heated discussion about expanding new beginnings internationally. Alexander believed they should scale quickly, leveraging his global network to reach more communities. Maya, however, argued for a slower, more deliberate approach, emphasizing the importance of understanding cultural nuances before implementing programs abroad. "We can't rush this," Maya insisted during one of their strategy meetings. "Every community has unique needs and challenges. If we expand too fast without proper research, we risk doing more harm than good." Alexander frowned, clearly frustrated. "I understand your concerns, but speed is crucial. The faster we act, the more people we can help." "It's not about numbers," Maya countered. "It's about quality. We owe it to the women we serve to get it right." For a moment, neither spoke. The tension thickened the room. Finally, Alexander sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're right," he admitted reluctantly. "I sometimes forget that growth isn't always linear. Let's take our time and ensure we're making meaningful progress." Maya smiled, relieved. "Thank you for listening. That's what makes us a great team. We balance each other out. Their ability to navigate disagreements strengthened their partnership, proving that family wasn't just about blood ties, but also about trust, communication, and compromise. Over time, they developed a dynamic where each respected the other's perspective, blending Maya's grassroots experience with Alexander's strategic vision. Amidst her busy schedule, Maya found joy in small, unexpected moments. She loved spending weekends volunteering at local shelters, reading stories to children whose mothers were rebuilding their lives. She cherished the letters she received from women who had graduated from New Beginnings programs, sharing tales of newfound independence and hope. And she treasured quiet evenings at home, flipping through old photo albums Alexander had given her, piecing together fragments of their shared history. One evening, as Maya sorted through a box of mementos Alexander had sent her, she stumbled upon a faded photograph she hadn't seen before. It showed their father standing beside a young Maya, holding her tiny hand as they walked along a beach. Tears welled up in her eyes as she traced the image with her fingers. For so long she had resented her father for leaving, for choosing another family over hers. But looking at the picture now, she saw something different. A man who, despite his flaws, had loved her in his own way. Alexander noticed her emotional state when he called later that night. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "I'm fine," Maya replied softly. I found a photo of Dad today. It made me think about him differently, about both of us." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Do you miss him?" Alexander asked quietly. Maya hesitated before answering. "I think I miss what could have been, the life we might have had if things were different. But I'm starting to realize that holding on to anger doesn't change anything. Maybe it's time to let go." Alexander cleared his throat, his tone thoughtful. "You know, I've spent most of my life trying to live up to Dad's expectations. I wanted him to be proud of me, to see me as successful. But now I understand that legacy isn't about perfection. It's about connection. What matters is how we treat the people around us, not the titles or achievements we collect." Maya nodded, though he couldn't see her. "You're right. Legacy is about love, kindness, and the impact we leave behind. That's what I want to focus on moving forward." Their conversation ended with a sense of resolution, a shared understanding that they were writing their own stories, one rooted in healing, growth, and unity. As Maya hung up the phone, she felt a profound sense of peace. The ruby ring that had started it all sat safely tucked away in a drawer, its brilliance dimmed compared to the light it had ignited within her. It symbolized not just a twist of fate, but a journey of transformation, a reminder that even the smallest choices could lead to extraordinary destinies. Life wasn't perfect, and Maya knew challenges would always arise. But she faced them with courage, armed with the knowledge that she wasn't alone. Whether it was the women she served, the friends she cherished, or the brother she had gained, Maya had built a support system that fortified her against any storm. And as she looked toward the future, she did so with hope, determination, and an unshakable belief in the power of second chances. Years passed, and Maya's journey continued to unfold in ways she could never have predicted. What had begun as a chance discovery of a ruby ring in a cafe had transformed into a life filled with purpose, relationships, and achievements that stretched far beyond her wildest dreams. Yet despite all the changes, Maya remained steadfast in her commitment to helping others and staying true to herself. By now, New Beginnings had grown into a global movement, reaching communities across continents. The organization's programs had touched thousands of lives, empowering single mothers to break free from cycles of poverty and create brighter futures for themselves and their children. Maya traveled frequently, visiting project sites, meeting beneficiaries, and speaking at conferences about the importance of supporting marginalized groups. She became a beacon of hope for many, her story serving as proof that resilience and determination could overcome even the toughest odds. One sunny afternoon, Maya found herself standing on a stage in front of a packed auditorium at an international women's summit. The theme of the event was Breaking Barriers, and she had been invited to deliver the keynote speech. As she looked out at the sea of faces, women of all ages, backgrounds, and walks of life, she felt a surge of emotion. These were her people, her community, her family and spirit. They had fought battles similar to hers, faced obstacles that seemed insurmountable, and yet here they were, united by a shared desire to rise above. "Good morning," Maya began, her voice steady but warm. "When I was asked to speak today, I thought long and hard about what message I wanted to share. Should I talk about my work with New Beginnings, about the challenges we've overcome or the milestones we've achieved? Or should I focus on the twists of fate that brought me here? The ruby ring, the billionaire brother, the sudden transformation from waitress to advocate?" She paused, allowing a ripple of laughter to spread through the audience. But then I realized something. None of those details matter unless we understand the bigger picture. My story isn't unique. It's not special because of wealth or privilege. It's special because it represents possibility. Possibility? For anyone who dares to dream, who refuses to give up, who believes that no matter how dark things may seem, there is always a glimmer of light waiting to guide you forward. Maya went on to share her journey, weaving together moments of hardship and triumph. She spoke candidly about growing up poor, losing faith in her father, and feeling invisible in a world that often overlooked people like her. She described the day she found the ruby ring, the shock of discovering Alexander, and the daunting task of rebuilding trust, not just with him, but with herself. And she talked about the countless women she had met along the way, whose courage and resilience inspired her every day. "When I started this journey," she said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion, "I didn't know where it would lead. All I knew was that I wanted to make a difference, to leave the world better than I found it. But what I didn't realize was that in helping others, I would also heal myself. Every woman I've worked with has taught me something valuable. Together we've built a sisterhood of strength, solidarity, and support. And that, more than anything, is what keeps me going." As Maya concluded her speech, the room erupted into applause. Women stood, cheering and wiping away tears, moved by her words and the authenticity behind them. For many, her story was a mirror reflecting their own struggles and aspirations. It reminded them that they weren't alone, that change was possible, even when the odds seemed stacked against them. After the summit, Maya returned home, exhausted but fulfilled. Her apartment, once a cramped and lonely space, now felt cozy and welcoming, filled with mementos from her travels and tokens of gratitude from the women she had helped. On her desk sat a framed photo of her and Alexander, taken during one of their volunteer trips. They stood side by side, smiling brightly, surrounded by children waving colorful flags. It was a moment frozen in time, symbolizing the bond they had forged. A bond rooted in love, forgiveness, and shared purpose. Alexander himself had undergone significant growth over the years. Once driven solely by ambition and success, he had learned to prioritize compassion and connection. Through Maya, he had rediscovered parts of himself he had long buried, the boy who dreamed of making a real difference, not just accumulating wealth. Together they had redefined what it meant to be a family, proving that blood wasn't the only thing that bound people together. Despite their busy schedules, Maya and Alexander made time for each other, often spending weekends hiking, cooking, meals together, or simply sitting on the balcony of his penthouse, watching the city lights flicker below. Their conversations ranged from deep philosophical debates to lighthearted banter, reminding them both of the joy of having someone who truly understood them. Life wasn't without its challenges, of course. Critics still surfaced occasionally, questioning Maya's motives or accusing her of exploiting her newfound status. But she had learned to brush off negativity, focusing instead on the positive impact she was creating. She surrounded herself with supportive friends, mentors, and colleagues who believed in her vision and encouraged her to keep pushing boundaries. One evening, as Maya sat on her couch flipping through a scrapbook of memories, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was Sarita, her mother. Their relationship had improved significantly over the years, thanks in part to Maya's efforts to mend old wounds and rebuild trust. Sarita often attended events hosted by New Beginnings, volunteering her time and sharing stories of her own struggles as a single mother. "Hello, Beta," Sarita said warmly. "How are you?" "I'm good, Mom," Maya replied, smiling. "Just looking through some old photos. Remember this one?" She held up the scrapbook to show a picture of them baking cookies together when she was a child. Sarita chuckled softly. "Of course I remember. You were covered in flour from head to toe." They laughed, reminiscing about simpler times before Sarita grew serious. "Maya, I just wanted to say, I'm so proud of you. You've done incredible things, not just for yourself, but for so many others. Your father would have been proud too." Maya felt a lump rise in her throat. For years she had resented her father, blaming him for abandoning her and her mother. But as she grew older, she came to see him as a flawed human being who had tried his best, even if it hadn't been enough. "Thank you, Mom," she said softly. "That means a lot." As the call ended, Maya closed the scrapbook and leaned back against the couch, lost in thought. Her journey had been full of twists and turns, highs and lows, victories and setbacks. But through it all, she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. She had discovered that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars or possessions. It was measured in the connections we forge, the lives we touch, and the legacy we leave behind. The ruby ring that had sparked it all now rested in a glass case on her bookshelf, a symbol of serendipity and second chances. Occasionally, Maya would take it out, holding it up to the light and marveling at its brilliance. It reminded her of how unpredictable life could be, and how sometimes the smallest object could set off a chain reaction that changed everything. On quiet nights, Maya liked to sit by her window, gazing at the stars and reflecting on her journey. She thought about the little girl she used to be, the one who dreamed of escaping poverty and finding meaning in a world that often ignored her. That girl was still inside her, but she was no longer afraid. She had faced her fears, embraced her strengths, and created a life she could be proud of. And as she drifted off to sleep, Maya whispered a silent thank you to the universe, for the ruby ring, for Alexander, for her mother, and for every person who had crossed her path. Life had tested her, challenged her, and pushed her to her limits, but it had also rewarded her with love, friendship, and purpose, and for that, she would forever be grateful.